was in his late 40s when he first came into Absolute with no previous resistance training experience at all. Justin has had phenomenal progress. He did testing session last week and front squatted 100 kilos for 3 reps, power cleaned 82.5 kilos and deadlifted 130. So his progress has been nothing short of amazing. Bucket handle tear of the menisci is an injury to the meniscus of the knee joint, which occurs when the knee is typically in flexion with rotation. So as an example, we have here the knee. So flexion and then rotation is the most typical way for the bucket handle tear to occur.
If it does occur, then it can result in a vertical slice through the mid-portion of the menisci. This leaves the attachment points of the meniscus intact, but the torn portion can pull into the center of the joint. If there is a healing potential for the client, then one option is to have a meniscus repair, which involves suturing the meniscus back into position.
So one of my clients, Justin, he had a meniscus tear which occurred from doing the martial art Aikido. And essentially, Aikido is a martial art which has a high degree of rotational elements, throwing, landing, attacking, defending. So the knee joint is of incredible importance, particularly with a lot of the maneuvers in Aikido. You have a lot of rotational elements. To better understand the injury, I had a look at some of the meniscal rehabilitation procedures and protocols that had come out of Princeton University and utilised some of their frameworks for developing Justin's program, particularly with some of the key variables that we want to look at in short-term rehabilitation, such as his ability to attain pain-free ranges of motion, the stabilisation of the knee, and then following that, developing strength and power around the knee joint. So the initial process when I first met Justin was to go through a full and thorough movement assessment, and in particular, we wanted to have a look at his ranges of motion through his knee joint. So in both knee flexion and in the extension, and see what kind of movement and function he had in that in those movements. We then looked at Justin's ability to absorb and control force through his knee using squatting patterns, particularly single leg squat and double leg squat. And again, we were looking for movement, range of motion, and also any discomfort or feelings of restriction he had. So initially, our short-term to medium-term goals over the first 6 to 12 weeks were to restore his pain-free range of motion, build confidence and stability around the knee joint, and then improve his lower body strength. And the fundamentals of this, ensuring that by the end of the 4 weeks, he had pain-free range of movement. The second element of that was to develop his single leg stability. So we worked a lot on balance work. And then the third part was develop his motor control and competence in different movement patterns, as he had significant bilateral knee valgus, which is when your knees come together. We had to work on really being able to develop external rotation from the hip and then stabilizing the knee through those new motor patterns. So weeks 5 to 8, once he developed a competency in the basic motor patterns and developed pain-free ranges of motion in flexion and extension, we looked at really emphasizing on building strength, particularly through double leg and single leg patterns. So lots of squatting, lots of lunging, and also integrating conditioning work using more extended intervals, particularly on the bike, as that would provide a base of fitness for then subsequent higher intensity phases later on. So weeks 9 to 14, we started to incorporate, to build on our strength and power base that we developed in week 5 to 8, we started to really incorporate a lot of dynamic and explosive movements, such as jumping, both linear and lateral, which then would give us a clear indication of when he would be ready to return to Aikido. With his Aikido, Justin trains 4 to 6 times per week, quite often doing 2 to 4 hour sessions, depending on whether it's a weekday or a weekend. Justin has had phenomenal progress. He did testing session last week and front squatted 100 kilos for 3 reps, power cleaned 82.5 kilos, and deadlifted 130. So his progress has been nothing short of amazing.